Guys, oh my god, so I would like to first start off this video by apologizing for the fact that it's been like 10,000 years since I've made a video. I wish I had some other excuse besides, it'd be like that sometimes. But I guess I've been doing a lot of thinking, like I think most people have, because what the fuck else are you going to do right now? Surprisingly, my thinking has not at all been about J.K. Rowling or her transphobia. I know, shocking. It's actually been about me that I've been thinking about. Narcissistic? I think so. Okay, so here's the thing. Let's start off with this. Lately, over the last few years, let's say, I've actually been starting to feel more comfortable about my body than I have ever before in my life. Now, granted, the weight thing is still, hit or miss with how I feel about myself, but for the most part, with regards to my transness, I'm actually fairly comfortable with myself, which is kind of shocking, actually. Problem is, this has led me to kind of an interesting question / conundrum, because I suffer from this thing called crippling self-doubt, where I start to second guess, like, everything. And over the last few years or so, I've started to wonder, do I actually still want bottom surgery, or has society convinced me that the only way to be a proper woman is to have the proper anatomy? Now, we don't have time to get into how problematic that statement is, because to say proper anatomy does imply that there's an improper anatomy, and I think that's kind of a subject I don't really want to touch, because I don't really believe that. But it's kind of an internalized thing, you know what I mean? I'm gonna sidetrack a little bit because I think it's important to do so, and it's all kind of related, so bear with me. Put a pin in that question about bottom surgery, right? Okay, so over the last month or so, I discovered the term bicycle, which sounds really funny and is kind of comedic, but according to Urban Dictionary, basically a bicycle is the cycle of attraction to one gender or another that a bisexual person will go through at any point in their life. Now, I generally don't trust much of what Urban Dictionary has to say. Like, they're not exactly known for being the paragon of good judgment, but in this case, it was kind of recommended to me by a friend, and I actually do feel like it's very fitting and very telling, and so this kind of is important. For the majority of my life, that is to say from about 7th grade, when I started to realize I had an attraction to men, to literally up until a few months ago, I found the pendulum of my bicycle swinging towards men, and I really didn't identify as bi until relatively recently, but that's a whole other thing. Basically, what I'm saying is I was attracted to men almost exclusively, pretty much since the age of like 13, 14. Then, after I transitioned, I found myself suddenly having crushes on girls for the first time in years, honestly. And I sort of brushed this off as just like, okay, well, I'm heteroflexible, which is to say I'm basically straight, but if I ever fell in love with a girl, I wouldn't say no to it. Like, I'm not going to brush off that possibility entirely. It's a way of basically keeping your options open. It's kind of hedging your bets. Lately, however, in fact, really over the last month or so, the pendulum swing has kind of gone the other way, and now we're looking at a scenario in which I'm seemingly more attracted to women than I previously was, which is strange and confusing, and I have a lot of thoughts about that, but we'll get into that. In fact, it's gotten to the point that earlier this month, I found myself with a major crush on a woman, and even knowing the term bicycle, I still found myself kind of wondering if this meant I wasn't actually a lesbian. Needless to say, human sexuality is weird and confusing, and I don't know. But see, here's the problem. Part of what's always kind of thrown me off about my sexuality has been my transness. I wouldn't necessarily want to be cis, and yet the thought of actually dating a woman as a trans woman does give me a great amount of anxiety. And the problem is, as Natalie Wynn pointed out in her recent video about shame, which I just rewatched and kind of inspired this particular video, is that when you've had men show you a great deal of attraction regardless of parts, whereas women really haven't, it kind of changes how you view relationship possibilities. In fact, it seems easier to be in a relationship with men because they, for the most part, don't really seem to care what you have. And in fact, from what I've seen, a lot of them do seem to prefer trans women who are pre-op and or non-op. Make no mistake, I'm not saying that I think my attraction to men has ever been disingenuous. In fact, I would argue that whereas Natalie felt compulsive heterosexuality, I've never really had that problem because before I transitioned, I identified as gay for 8 years and very proudly at that. So when I did transition and I found myself suddenly identifying as straight, it didn't feel entirely correct. In fact, it was something that was kind of hard for me to get used to after years and years and years of feeling like, no, I'm just, gay. But no, actually, I'm a woman, and now I'm very confused. How does this all tie into bottom surgery and dysphoria? Well, so I started transitioning in my senior year of college, which was around 2014. And at the time, I wasn't at all questioning my attraction to men. I very much knew that I was attracted to men, but what I didn't know was whether or not they would be attracted to me. Because, and spoiler alert, up until my transition, I really hadn't had a lot of attention from men. In fact, until I went on dating sites as a trans woman at like 23, I believe, I really hadn't ever been hit on by any man, and I certainly didn't see myself as attractive, and so it kind of was difficult for me, and it led to a lot of confusion and self-doubt. And for me, I really didn't think I would be able to date without surgery, because in my own mind, I didn't know how I would be comfortable dating, and I certainly didn't think I would be attractive to someone who was expecting a cis woman. And at this point, my need and desire for surgery was literally so strong that I could not think of anything else. I was researching it heavily. I was watching every video on YouTube that I could get my hands on, whether it was, videos of the actual surgery, which I was fascinated by, or videos of girls who had had the surgery and sort of their reaction. And I learned something in those videos, not the least of which was to sort of temper my expectations. Because I think a lot of girls who had the surgery in the videos that I was watching, they were kind of disappointed because for them, they felt like this was going to change everything. It was like depression gone, anxiety gone, acne cleared, my life is perfect. Except that's not really what this surgery is all about. The only thing it corrects is exactly what it says on the tin, the genitals. And you'd think maybe, I guess, that would in turn make everything else better. But actually, it was never my expectation that all of my problems would go away once I had the surgery. It was more that one particular problem would now be less of an issue, presumably. As time went on, however, and I was forced, due mostly to money reasons, to hold off on getting the surgery, I found myself becoming less and less obsessed with it and more comfortable in my body. And it's kind of no coincidence that this is largely because I was now getting attraction from men. I had a boyfriend in this time who I was with for 2 years. I suddenly found myself an object of desire regardless of my parts, and that made me more comfortable in my gender identity. And that's not something I'm particularly proud of, but is a factor that I felt important to share. I'd like to point out that I don't think this has lessened my desire necessarily to get the surgery. Obviously, it's still there, but it's more in the back of my mind instead of the forefront of my mind, because I think part of me does realize that it's still kind of difficult given, monetary shit. And so it has led me to question myself now and think, well, if it's not your sole focus as it once was, is it really that necessary? Because, and for those who aren't aware, surgeries like SRS aren't actually based on a desire to get a surgery, like, say, lip injections or a facelift or breast augmentation. It's more about a need. And that kind of becomes a problem because the question of want versus need is really super complex and I don't think easily definable or answered. But it does beg the question, listen, a facelift is at least as permanent as SRS. Like, you are going to look like that forever. There is no changing something like a facelift. Yes, you can get rid of breast augmentation, but even that's like more permanent than most things. And yet, those aren't things you need to see two therapists for. Those aren't things you need to get approval for. Those aren't things that they need to make sure that you actually need rather than just want. And I find that very problematic. So here's how this all ties together. Because as I started to realize I was bi, I started to feel those old feelings of doubt about what kind of partner that I would make to anyone being a trans woman. Because the truth is, up until recently, I haven't really had any experiences with women finding me attractive as I am, regardless of genitalia. Okay, so granted, yes, things have been complicated in the last few months, and for the foreseeable future, I don't even want to get into what's been going on. We all know, I don't want to talk about it. But even before that, when I was openly bi on Tinder, it wasn't as if I was getting a lot of attention from women either. Now, there is something to be said about whatever Tinder's algorithm is, because I do find that I was probably shown about 10 men to every one woman back when I was doing Tinder, which I had to stop because it was just rotting my brain. That's a whole other video. A large part of the reason I think it took me so long to even realize I was bi, I'm only learning just now, is because there is so much of the way TERFs talk about trans women and the way I have heard us be talked about that really just makes you feel kind of dirty and wrong if you even so much as look at a cis lesbian. And that's to say nothing of trans lesbians, which is a whole other thing. And I'm not unattracted to them. That's not my point. I'm more talking about cis lesbians because I think that's a larger group of a small group in general, if that makes sense. I still feel like, honestly, outside of the internet, I'm kind of like this weird middle ground that I just, oh God, drives me insane. And the sad truth is, even though I know that the pendulum swing of my bicycle has currently swung in the female direction, I don't actually know if I would ever act on it. Because the truth of the matter is, whether or not a cis lesbian would even find me attractive is kind of irrelevant. It's more the question of, would I be comfortable with that? Would I be comfortable knowing what the expectation for them is when it comes to, a girl like me, as it were? The sad fact is, in both the lesbian community and with cis straight men, there is kind of two expectations when it comes to women, especially now with trans women becoming more well known and seen. And the one expectation is either A, you're going to be one of those women who wants to, for lack of a better term, dick someone down. And that's great and that's valid, but that's not me. The other expectation is that you actually have a vagina, which is also not me. And so I'm in this weird middle ground where I'm somehow too trans for some people and not trans enough for the other group of people. It's a very strange dichotomy. Now, admittedly, all of this is showing a lot of biases on my part, and maybe even more than I would like, a little bit of self-loathing of my trans identity, which is unfortunate because, as I said, I do really love myself, but it goes in waves, let's put it that way. But here's the ultimate problem, right? Because for me, I still feel very confident that I want bottom surgery. But there is a part of me that has to wonder is, do I want it for me? Or do I want it because I think it would make my dating life easier? And how can I really know what the truth of that question is? I don't know. I don't know that there is an easy answer to that question. I think it's It would be easy to say that, yes, I want it because I think it would make my dating life easier and I think it would make me more comfortable in my dating life. But it does beg the question, is that a valid enough reason to want such a surgery? And if it isn't, what does that mean? Honestly, dysphoria doesn't hit the same way that it used to, and that's a good thing, I think. But I'm now in a weird position where my attraction to women feels problematic to me, but my attraction to men is seemingly non-existent these days. And so I'm just kind of at an impasse where I'm, I guess, just going to be alone forever. Which is dramatic, but have you met me? So here's the deal, right? Because ultimately, I find myself in the position where 6 years after I came out as trans, I'm kind of still dealing with some of the original feelings that I had when I first started. Because, as I said at the beginning of this video, when I first came out as trans, I didn't think I was going to be able to date anyone then. And I now find myself in the exact same position, wondering if I would even be able to date someone because I'm not entirely comfortable with myself yet. And it's strange because I'm comfortable in my womanhood. I don't doubt my womanhood. It's only in relation to dating or the possibility therein that I really start to question things, and I really start to wonder who I am or what any of this means. And it's hard. It's very frustrating, especially when, I thought this was something I took care of a long time ago. You would think 6 years on, you would know yourself a little bit better. And yet, having a lot of time to think and listen to those dark, dark voices in your mind really leaves a lot of questions unanswered and creates a lot of questions that may not have been there otherwise. All of this is to say, I'm just overthinking a lot. Yeah, that's fun. Anyway, God, I don't know what's happening anymore. This is a thing. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, God only knows why, give me a like, comment down below, subscribe if you dare, and yeah. Thank you.